Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Welcome to World Leaders Session of the 90th Jeju Forum for Peace and Prosperity. My name is Jae Jung, your MC for today's session. Today's World Leaders Session is a meaningful venue where we can share global leaders' insightful wisdom to address global challenges we face today. And this year's World Leaders Session is particularly significant as it returns to the Jeju Forum after 4 years. Now, I'd like to have the privilege to introduce the chairperson of today's session. He served as the 35th Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade and is currently a senior advisor at Kim En-jang. And please welcome His Excellency, former Minister Myung-hwan Ryu, with a big round of applause.
Well, thanks for the kind introduction of moderator. Once again, I wish to welcome all of the audience as well as panelists who attended World Leaders Conference this morning. The security situation surrounding the Korean Peninsula sounds alarming. And when Russia invaded Ukraine 2 years ago, the world was shocked. And it is even more surprising that the war taking place at the corner of the European continent has become a real risk factor for the Korean Peninsula so quickly. And North Korea won't receive sensitive technology from Russia to upgrade its missiles and nuclear weapons in return for providing conventional weapons and munitions, and furthermore try to forge a military solidarity, including China. However, today's session of World Leaders Forum will focus on more broader issues, such as geopolitical tensions in East China Sea, as well as Middle East and other economic uncertainties spurred by economic security concerns, and also a climate change and environmental crisis, etc. Now, let me introduce very briefly of our panelists today. First of all, former UN Secretary General, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, who also served as a foreign minister under Roh Moo-hyun, somewhat about 20 years ago. At the time, I was his deputy as a vice minister. And the next panelist is His Excellency Hokuda Yasu, a former minister of Japan, who has been well known to all Korean people and to the world as well. He is one of the most respected and renowned statesmen in Japanese society, whom I personally respect very much. And the next is Dr. Santa Maria, who is the Executive Director of APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Secretariat, based in Singapore. And she served as a top-level civil servant and trade negotiator for Malaysian government. And last but not least, His Excellency Mr. Khao Kum Hoom, a renowned Cambodian politician who is now Secretary General of ASEAN, which is one of the oldest regional organizations representing 10 Southeast Asian nations. Then the session will start right now. First of all, let me ask the same one question to all 4 panelists. And each panelist may have 4 to 5 minutes to answer the question. After hearing answers from each panelist, I will ask another rather more specific questions to each panelist one by one. The first question to everybody is, in your experience and also in your assessment, what is the most critical challenges to the world peace and prosperity now, and what the world leaders should do with urgency in order to prevent international or regional crisis that will undermine world peace and prosperity? And first, salvo will be shot by His Excellency Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. First of all, it's a great honor for me to take in this very important panel discussion. Let me straight go to your questions. In a nutshell, we are standing on the edge of precipice. The foundations of international law, and including the United Nations, are now standing on a very difficult situations. It's hard to make decisions, as the global leaders were united in 1945 when they established the United Nations. They created a Security Council and General Assembly and many important organizations now. Unfortunately, the global leaders, they are completely divided, much more so. Now, we are on the risk of all these international organizations, international law, and international agreements are on the verge of collapsing because of the political divisions. Never in the past have we been experiencing this kind of a situation. Multiple crises are happening now. First, peace and security. We are still now seeing the Russian illegal aggression against Ukraine. Now it's a third year. The Middle East situation has never been peaceful, but as far as I understand, since the so-called Six-Day War, I think this is the most serious situations where even the most powerful country, United States, is not able to handle this one. They cannot mediate this one, even with their close ally countries, Israel. All Middle East are divided, then even it affects the Western countries are divided. Therefore, we have to really make sure that global leaders should be united. Now, on top of this, if I have to point out one single most important and most serious, most dangerous, I would say that this climate crisis. Consider just the catastrophic rains and floods we have experienced in Kenya, Brazil, Afghanistan, elsewhere. Even I was told that the fishermen in Jeju Island, they're not able to catch fish off the coast here unless they go farther deep into the ocean, because temperature is rising, because seawater is now getting boiled, almost boiled. My successor, Secretary General Antonio Guterres, he said that we are in the era of global boiling. When I took my job as Secretary General, we were saying that global warming, mostly global warming, that it passed to saying global heating, now global warming. This is what we are now experiencing. It is absolutely necessary that whole countries in the world must make sure that we achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. The IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, has set the target by 2030, just 6 years from now. We have to make sure that 43% of global emission should be reduced, 43%. Then by 2050, all the countries in the world, we have to make it zero. Now, Korea is one of the 10 largest, belongs to carbon-emitting countries, starting from China, Russia, China, United States, India, Russia, etc., etc. We have to make sure that otherwise we will be losing our planet Earth. Many scientists have already declared that so-called 1.5 degrees Celsius limit has been over. The World Meteorological Organization, WMO, of the United Nations, has declared that the global temperature has already risen 1.5 degrees Celsius. This is very serious. Some scientists are saying, warning, that by 2100, we may experience the sixth mass extinction. Mass extinction. What does mass extinction mean? That means more than 70% of human beings and animals will perish in this world. That means 2100, we are not sure whether our planet Earth will be here as we are. When this last mass extinction happened, that happened 65 million years ago. 65 million years ago. It's a matter of just the last 200 years since industrialization began. Therefore, we must make sure. Many countries are resolved that they will cut this emission by 2050. For example, good example is that the European Union has passed this, what is known as a CBAM, Climate Border Adjustment Mechanism. Starting from 2035, they will close import of all these diesel or fuel gasoline cars. Absolutely, there will be no coal or diesel cars. I understand that Hyundai Motor Company has decided to produce only electric cars by 2035. Otherwise, no industries will be able to sell their merchandises. And the POSCO, one of the biggest emitter plants in Korea, the POSCO, Pohang Steel Mill, itself takes 12% of the greenhouse gas emissions emitted in South Korea. They decided to change all these 8 coal burners into hydrogen burners. These are something people are now changing their attitude, their way of living. Therefore, I'm really asking each and every one of you. You may just think, I'm just one of the citizens. I'm not responsible. That is not the case. It's not only the government. It's not only the industries. The civil society must work together. You have to use carbon-free items to change your consumption patterns. Even one single sheet of paper or one drop of water, one electric bulbs, that will matter a lot. So we have to change on 3 tripartite corporations. That means government. I think government, and particularly political leaders, they should prioritize, put as #1 priority on climate change issues, on their national agenda. Then business, they must change their production systems to carbon-free items. Then individuals, citizens, yourself, we have to change our living patterns, living styles. Unless these tripartite partnerships are aligned, I don't think we will have to regret for what we will have to do. Now, it's very important now. I'm really urging you, change your living patterns in your homes, in your companies. That's what I'm really asking you. Otherwise, we will regret. Then I'm also adding one more. That's what I'm saying until now is sort of a mitigation. We have to mitigate. We have to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. Then there are ways of adapt to changing situation, adaptation. So mitigation and adaptation activities must go together. I am now currently working as a chairman of the Global Center on Adaptation, which is headquartered in the Netherlands. I'm working very closely with member states, particularly businesses, as well as international financial institutions, World Bank, IMF, and African Development Bank, etc., etc. We have to join all our hands together. We can change in our infrastructures like road, streets, and whatever transportation. We have to change to climate-free, emission-free. I have been working very closely with the United States and China because they are the single two largest emitting countries. China and United States take at least 48% of global emission. Now, rest of 52% of emissions are being emitted by all 191 UN member states. They are united, even though their relationship at this time, political relationship, is not harmonious. I have been working very closely when I was a Secretary General, making sure that President Obama at that time and President Xi Jinping, still he's in power, work together. Without their working together, I don't think we were able to have Paris Climate Change Agreement. It is now in effect. So let us join all our hands to make sure that our planet Earth and our generation, our succeeding generation, humanity, can sustainably live together. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Well, Secretary General, thank you very much. And I understood that climate change issues is not only environmental issue, but it's the issue of the survival of humanity. And you mentioned that the climate, global warming to global heating to global boiling, then will survival these matters. Thank you very much. The next speaker will be Prime Minister Fukuda. Yes, so floor is yours, sir.
私は5年前のフォーラムに参加をさせていただいたことがございます。しかしその後5年間、ずいぶん大きなことはさまざま起こったわけでございまして、そういうことについてまた後ほど申し上げます。この間にですね、何が重要課題かとこういうことを申し上げれば、これはね、今バン・キムン元事務総長がおっしゃった通り、環境の問題だと思います。で、その環境について世界がかなり同一方向に進み始めたと思いますけれども、しかし非常に緩慢であるということはこれは言えるというように思います。で、そのことは先ほどの事務総長のお話で全面的に賛成でございます。そしてそれ以外のことでこの5年間に起こったこと、それはまずコロナですよね。コロナ3年間、このコロナ時代にいろいろなことが起こりました。コロナ地震でですね、多くの方々が亡くなるということもありましたし、それから派生してまた私は戦争が始まりましたね。私自身はこの戦争、ロシアとウクライナの戦争でありますけれども、この戦争の原因は突き詰めれば両者間のコミュニケーションの不足というふうに思っております。そしてそのコミュニケーションの不足を生じさせたのはコロナであったと いうように思っています。ただ戦争が始まったことについてコロナに責任を転嫁するつもりはありません。そしてまたもう一つは最近コロナ後でありますけれども、イスラエルそしてパレスティナのこの戦争、この2つの戦争は現在進行中であります。でこの2つの戦争をですね、まず止めなければいけないということは、これははっきり申し上げてよろしいというふうに思います。でこの戦争終わって世界が混乱するというような状況の中から気候変動対策が手遅れになるとかいったようなことがあっては断じてならない。でそのためにはですね、この問題をまず解決する、そのために全世界が英知を絞る必要があるのではないかというように私は考えております。そしてもう一つ申し上げたいことがあるんですけれども、この5年間というわけではありませんけれども、この AI の進化ですね、AI の進化がですね、急速に加速度的に進化が早まっているということであります。でその AI 技術がですね、良い方向に使われている限りはこれは全く問題はない。生活の向上、人類のその生活、それから先ほど来の環境、人類のその将来のことについてもですね、この AI がこれから活躍してくれるでしょうという大きな期待は持っておりますけれども、しかしこれがですね、万一その悪用される、もしくは兵器の製造に関係するような、人類を滅ぼすような方向で開発が行われれば、これは環境問題で努力しているそういう人類全体のその意思をくじくものでございまして、全く逆の方向であるということであります。この AI 技術の進展というのは、最近の情報によりますと、この AI がですね、スーパーコンピューターを自由に操るといったような場面もあり得るということであります。でそうなるとですね、それはもう人知の及ばないスピードでもって、また人知の計り知れない幅広い、そして将来的なことも含めて大変大きなですね、結論をそのスーパーコンピューターが出してくると、その AI がと組んだスーパーコンピューターが解を出してくるという可能性もあるわけであります。これは核兵器はもともと平和利用するということが大きな目標でもあったわけでありますけれども、今やこれが戦争に利用されるというようなことになった。それと同じようなことがこの AI の世界でも起こってくるかもしれないということになりますと、これは AI に人類の運命がその決定づけられてしまうというふうなことも考えられるので、このことについてですね、国際的な仕組みを作って、核兵器と同じようにそういう制限、用途の制限とか活用とか、そういうものについての国際的な仕組みを今から用意しなければいけない。これは喫緊の課題だというように思ってますので、そういうことはまた国連でやるのか、または別の組織でやるのか、有効な方法をぜひ考えてもらいたい。我々のですね、この将来については非常に大きな問題があって、そしてそれが人類を滅ぼしてしまうという環境問題、そして AI 技術の発展といったようなものを考えなければいけない、そういう時に至ったということをですね、本日皆様方に申し上げたいというように思っております。ありがとうございました。
Thank you, Prime Minister. It's very interesting to note that Corona caused less communication, and less communication caused the war in Ukraine and Middle East. And the next speaker will Dr. Santa Maria. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank the organizers for this honor of sitting with such illuminaries. For me, I just want to touch on and expand on what Prime Minister Fukuda said, the lack of communication. If we're looking at what is the biggest threat to world peace and prosperity, I think it is that we are not listening to each other. We are not putting people first. The humanitarian issues are not taking the forefront in all our discussions. What we need is a community of leaders, a platform where parties can have candid conversations. We need the middle powers to step up. At this stage, I think that the middle powers are to a large extent taking the back seat. What do I mean by middle powers? Member states of ASEAN, for example, there is a significant role, and I will leave that to Secretary General of ASEAN to expand on it, but I really feel that there is a role for middle powers in helping us to deal with those issues, whether it's climate change, whether it is the digital issues, whether it's AI, whether it's the energy transition. We really need a global framework to deal with this, and that involvement of a community of leaders, having those varied voices in the room to help us deal very candidly with those issues and the crisis that we have before us. The strength of APAC is in this. We are non-binding, we are voluntary, so we can bring parties together, and we've had diverse views in the room. And beyond just diverse views of politicians and policymakers, we've had the business community. I think to some extent we need to have the voice of the business community. We need to have the voice of those who will be affected by all this crisis. The voices of the young, the voices of women, the voices of the indigenous groups. If you're talking of climate change, who are the ones affected by this? These are the people who are more vulnerable, the women, the indigenous groups, people with disabilities. These are the voices that need to be heard. And I think if you're talking of managing crisis, I think these are the things that we need to do. We need the community of leaders who will bring together these diverse voices to help us find solutions. There's no one country that can do this by itself, but bringing in those voices together, collating those voices. And I go back to the point that I said, there's a clear role for middle powers. The middle powers have not had their voices heard loud enough. And, a forum like APAC, a forum like ASEAN, these are where those middle voices can assert themselves and be heard. And until we take time to listen to the people who are affected by this crisis, we will just go down that slippery slope that you talked about, both of you talked about. We need a global approach to listening to those voices and not just leave them on the margins. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, and thank you for your presentation. You echoed the importance of communication among leaders. We all agreed with. And last but not least, Secretary General of ASEAN, His Excellency Kao Kyung-hon. Please.
Thank you very much. Excellency, let me put on record my sincere appreciation that go to the organizers of the Jeju Forum 2024. And of course, I'm joining here for the very first time. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to join the leaders here by raising some other important issue. Of course, I agree that we have polar crisis, basically a climate and environmental crisis, also health crisis, the pandemic that we are recovering. We have humanitarian crisis because of war, of course, in Ukraine, and of course also the crisis in Gaza. This has brought a tremendous humanitarian crisis. Also, I would say the crisis of strategic mistrust. This is where I think the world has become more polarized. When we are polarized, we are paralyzed. That's why the UN Security Council is not working well, you see? Because it's not just they don't talk, it's that they don't even meet sometimes. When there's urgent need to meet to resolve such a crisis of proportion. So I think right now what we see is that there is increasing strategic competition, but at the end of the day, it's all about strategic mistrust. We believe in unilateralism, the increasing unilateralism. On the one hand, we are building more alliances. There's multiple alliances around the world now. And so forth and so forth. Of course, whether those institutions have been set up recently. These are, I think what we should do is to strengthen the existing institutions and bring in all the key players into those institutions. That's important. So I think in moving forward, what can we do in order to address all of this? But I think of all the crises, I would say the strategic mistrust of the leadership, of global leadership. And of course, we need dialogue and diplomacy. At the end of the day, it's about how can we have a more useful, constructive dialogue. And of course, using diplomacy. And that's where ASEAN has been engaging to bring together all the key players to have genuine dialogue. And of course, also consultations, engagement, because we believe this is the only way out. And I think that's why it's so important for us is that if we really want to move forward to address some of these crises, where the climate crisis, we need leadership. If there's no leadership there at a global level, how are we going to be able to address all this public crisis? So again, go back to basically the basic, how world leaders are going to have to work together. And of course, not just only the superpowers, and I agree, of course, world powers, and all the players. We need a community of leaders that work together across the different spectrums, the different sectors. And that's where ASEAN is trying very hard, using its own mechanisms to reach out on a regular basis. And we talk, we negotiate, we discuss, and trying to find practical solutions where possible. Of course, also, we need the voices of the people. The other thing I think is important is that even when we talk about the polarization, even the role of media has been polarized. Media, we've got a lot of information from media, but when media is not even, sometimes not even objective enough, become very subjective. And this is something that we have to really, hopefully the media will play a leadership role as well in conveying the information so that all of us get the right information, the correct information, so that, of course, policymakers, leaders, they make correct decision or the right appropriate decision. But sometimes I think media, watching media, sometimes very depressing also. The world is just full of sad news, you know. And that's something I think that we have to go beyond that. The media sometimes, of course, I'm not blaming the media, but of course sometimes they create, they invent, what we call they engage in the politics or invent reality. So I think perhaps media can play a constructive role as well. Besides, of course, we have thought leaders here, people from the different backgrounds, think tank people, of course. But I think the bottom line is that we have to think about humanities. Humanities belong to all of us. And actually, I would say that, again, how can we strengthen the strategic trust among the key players so that there will be a line of communication so that they can talk and they're looking at the strategic goals of humanities. Of course, that is to make war and conflict obsolete. We always believed before that war and conflict are obsolete, but today we've been proven wrong, completely wrong, that war and conflict is not obsolete at all. And of course, we have to wage a major battle, a major war against climate crisis. And I would agree that this is something that all of us can do at all levels from around the world. I think all of us have a role to play. Thank you.
Well, thank you, His Excellency Kao Kim Hoon, for your good presentation. Now that we've heard from four panelists about what is the most important challenge to the world peace, and now I want to ask more specific and customized questions to each and every panelist. But time is running out. I was told by the Secretariat to wound up by 10:20, so remaining time is about 15 to 17 minutes. But anyway, the first question is directed to Secretary General Ban. Recently, Russia refused to extend the expert panel on North Korea, nullifying all the UN sanctioned regimes against North Korea. And it's very pity. And how do you assess recent Russian behavior and what we should do to recover
I think we must continue to press the members of the Security Council to extend, to revive the panel of experts on monitoring North Korean nuclear issues. It's shameful that Russia has been supporting continuously until they received some military materials to attack Ukraine. That is my assessment. Why at this time they might have wanted to give some political support to North Korea. Therefore, in any way, there may be some other ways. There may be some other ways using some 21st century technology to monitor, even without the Security Council mandate. I think we should work very closely with the United States and other like-minded countries who will be ready to support in continuing monitoring the North Korean activities. Is absolutely necessary. Despite all these more than dozen, I think 15 Security Council sanctions resolutions, North Korea has been just neglecting and disregarding all these Security Council resolutions. This has been a very shameful and unacceptable situation. Therefore, we have to work hard. Now, it comes like Russia has been notorious knowing that the number one country which have cast veto, which have exercised the veto power in the history of the United Nations, the number one country is Russia. Then second comes United States, surprisingly. Then third, China. Then United Kingdom and France, very rarely. They have not been casting veto powers. Therefore, this veto power has been a source of great frustration and anger because the Security Council, on most cases, has been paralyzed. That when Security Council is paralyzed, the peace and security issues in the world is also had to be paralyzed. We cannot, only like-minded countries can join their hands. There's a quite limitation. Therefore, out of frustrations, now the General Assembly has taken some measure that whichever cases any P5, any one of the P5 cast veto powers, they must come within 10 days to the General Assembly and explain why they had to cast veto power. This is a sort of some humiliate those countries who cast vetoes. But it seems that to me that they don't care. They explain their position to the General Assembly. In any way, it's very hard to change. Some people say that criticizing me, I become sometimes, on many cases, just a scapegoat. Secretary General, what are you doing? But there is a limit that is not in my hands. But I have been urging Security Council members to change their way of decision making. So I think international community should send out a strong and hard and consistently the Security Council, the way of decision making must be changed. I think you raise your voices, even as citizens, and particularly media. I think media can play a very important role. Otherwise, it will only be the people around the world who will suffer on humanitarian. Even humanitarian issues, Russia has been casting veto power when there was a big crisis in the Middle East. Again, thank you very much. I'll be stopping here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Prime Minister Fukuda, let me ask you about the recent change of Japanese defense posture. Japan has been increasingly strengthening alliance relations with the United States. Now everybody calls alliance is global alliance. Japan decided to increase defense budget by 2% of GDP. And also, Japan is going to acquire attack capability to strike, preemptive strike to adversaries if and when it's necessary. And it's a sea change of Japanese defense posture compared to the last 7 years since Japan adopted peace constitution. And I wonder whether Japanese public, people in general, support that kind of change of defense posture of Japan.
ただいまのご質問は、それは外国から見てるとそういうようにしか見えないですね。ですけど、日本の基本的な考え方は、これは我々のその憲法で定められている通り、その戦争は放棄したということになっているんです。戦争はしたくないんです。だけども、しかししなければいけないというような状況になれば、それはその段階で判断するということはあるかもしれません。それは危急存亡の時だと思います。しかし今の憲法ではそういうことは許されていないというふうにまず申し上げておきたいと思います。その上で最近の日米のその双方の相談においてですね、そういう前向きな発言が多々ありました。そして例えばその軍事費をですね、今の2倍にすると。今の2倍といってもですね、今は GDP の 1% ということなんですけれども、その数字を 2% に引き上げるということなんです。で、これはですね、アメリカは特にそういう要求をしておりますけれども、 NATO 並みの 2% ということで、日本の 1% はあまりにも少ないのではないかという、そういう批判が米国サイドにあったので、それを受けてですね、 2% にしよう。特にこういうような不安定な状況になった時には、そのぐらいのことは最低限度しなければいけないんだというふうなことを日米韓首脳の間で決めたという話は聞いております。しかし国内的にはですね、そのことについて首相がその宣言鮮明にするということはまだしていないんです。国会でもって議論もしていないという状況でありまして、また予算の執行をですね、来年1年間先延ばしにするといったようなことはありますので、まだその議論をする余地はあるんで、これからどういう議論が始まるのか、そしてまたどういう世界の状況になっているのか、そういうことを見比べた上で最終判断をするということになりますから、私どもはですね、国民の一人としてはまだ決まってない、確定していることではない、こんなような理解もしております。それからもう一つ、日米同盟が今はですね、ロシアの侵攻といったようなことがありまして、安全保障面で非常に厳しい、そういう環境の中で判断すると、やはりそこのことはどうしてもクローズアップされてしまう。日本もですね、そのことを考えなければいけないということになりますけれども、そもそも日米同盟は安全保障ということはありました。それは当初からに遡れば、この共産主義に対抗するんだというふうな考え方もあったでしょう。しかしその考え方もですね、近年例えばイラクの侵攻、クウェート侵攻ということは1990年にありましたけれども、その頃からですね、それだけで日本はこのままでいいのかどうかという会議が生まれました。そういう中で最近のロシアの侵攻とかいうこと、またもう一つは北朝鮮がミサイルを頻繁に発射するといったようなことに刺激を受けてですね、日本の国民も若干考え方が変わりつつあるというふうなことは言えるんだろうと思います。で、その場合にやはり日米同盟という形でもってその機能させるということは必要なんでありますけれども、その日米同盟というのはですね、私は日米の安全保障というだけでなくて、経済安全保障という意味もありますし、世界全体のですね、一つの枠組みを作っている大事な機能だというふうに思っております。日米同盟というのは、これは日米だけのものでない、世界の秩序をそれによって維持することができる。今見てください。同盟関係でこれだけ長い期間しっかりした関係を作っているのは日米同盟の他にあるでしょうか。そしてそれもですね、アメリカが西側に、そして地球の西側に、 そして、日本は東側にちょうど地球をですね挟みつけるような形でもって同盟関係ができている。でそのことによってまた世界全体が一つの安定を維持しているということでありますから、この価値はですね、日米同盟の価値は安全保障とかいうだけのことでなくて、経済のことも、そしてまたそれ以外のこともですね、大変大事な機能、世界安定の機能を果たしているというように私は考えております。ですからその機能ですねがもしなくなったというようなことを考えれば、それは世界混乱の始まりだというように思いますので、当面はその関係を十分に重視しながら、そしてまたそれを良い方向に機能させるようにしていかなければいけないということはあります。ただこれはね、日本だけがそう考えたって、アメリカがどう考えるかということが問題なんで、それはアメリカの考えをよく正しながら、そしてそういう機能をですね将来的に維持していくということにアメリカにも努力をしてほしいというようなことも考えますけれども、しかしアメリカはどうするか、今アメリカも大きな大統領選挙を抱えてですね、その考え方がまとまるのかどうかというふうなことも見ていかなければいけない。とても大事な問題でありますけれども、私どもはよく注視をしていかなければいけない。しかし日米安保はそれは世界の安定のために一つの機能を果たしているということもですね、皆様方にはよく理解をしていただきたいと思っております。
Thank you for your kind answer. Next question to Dr. Santamaria, but time is running out. We have only 4 minutes. In light of evolving geopolitical landscape in Asia-Pacific region and also growing complexities of global economy, how can APEC adapt its strategies to remain relevant and effective in fostering regional economic cooperation?
Thank you very much. I don't have much time, but which is a good thing. The focus has to be on the people, and that's essentially what's happening now in APEC. Yes, we were very focused on trade and investment, trade and market access, but today there is another dimension to the conversation for trade and investment, and that is about people, about the climate, and about digitalization. And so that's today, when we're talking of regional economic integration, those are the areas that we are focusing on. Yes, there's a lot of noise going on, but clearly when we get together, it is about focusing on improving the conditions for our people, making sure that whatever we do, whatever measures we take, at the end of the day, the benefits must accrue to our people, whether it's a business community, and as I said, those who are marginalized, women in business, the indigenous community, those areas will continue to be topmost for us as we go forward. Yes, dealing with geopolitics is always there in our conversations, lots of noise in the meetings that we have, but at the end of the day, we're focused on our goal. What is it that we want to see for our community, for APEC? And essentially, that is it. Making sure that whatever we do brings benefits to our people. I'll stop there.
Well, thank you very much. Well, we have only 2 minutes left, so Mr. Kao Kum-hoon, how the ASEAN could resolve Myanmar crisis? What do you have in mind?
Well, thank you very much. I don't think I can do justice to this question. But having said that, you see, in February 2021, when the coup took place, ASEAN leaders called for an emergency meeting immediately, despite the COVID-19 period. It was done in April 2021. Of course, they came up with the 5-point consensus to engage with Myanmar, how to resolve the crisis in Myanmar. The aim, of course, one is to reduce, if not eliminate, violence on the ground. Second, of course, to promote inclusive political dialogue. And third, of course, to address the humanitarian crisis, to provide humanitarian assistance to Myanmar, particularly to the people who were affected by the situation inside Myanmar. And of course, we had to put the emphasis and priorities on the people of Myanmar, and that's something that has been the priority of our leaders. So in short, of course, ASEAN believes that it's best that we have to continue to focus on a Myanmar-led, Myanmar-owned process At the end of the day, it will be up to the Myanmar people. Will have to have the self-determination for their own future. But of course, having seen that we're trying to facilitate the inclusive political dialogue, engaging through, of course, the Special Envoy. The Special Envoy ASEAN Chair on Myanmar has been consistently taking this role, engage with the different stakeholders, including the leaders in Naypyidaw, but of course also those do not belong to the SEC as well. Again, I think I want to take this opportunity to thank all the countries and partners that have been supporting ASEAN's effort in resolving the crisis in Myanmar, particularly also in supporting the humanitarian dimension. So I think moving forward that we should give space and time a little bit more. Given the complexity of the issue, I don't think we can do justice in trying to have a quick fixed solution to the situation in Myanmar. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Now exactly time is over, so I refrain from making closing remarks. Thank you to all the audiences for your kind attention, and thank you all the panelists.
Thank you. Please give a big round of applause to our esteemed moderator and participants for sharing a insightful wisdom. Please give them a warm round of applause once again.